there, I'm here today to do my movie review for Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Cover here. As I mentioned in my book reviews, I just had already given back the copy I borrowed from my mom, so I don't have a physical copy to do the review with, but I'll do my best to soldier on anyways. So with the movie review, as normal, I'm gonna kind of do a similar summary to my book reviews. Gonna top it off with a wrap-up that includes both my movie rating and my book-to-movie rating, and I'll just jump in here. The Half-Blood Prince is the 6th book in the series and the 6th movie in the series. It's one of the longer ones, so I know that a lot will be kind of cut out in translation just to the silver screen due to time constraints. We can't have every movie be the 12-hour epic that we want. With this movie, I remember watching it the first time with some very specific expectations, and some of them were met and some of them were not, and I'll go over it in my likes and dislikes and a little bit in the characters, so I will just plow forward here. One of my first likes with the movie is how they had Maggie Smith play McGonagall. She is very intelligent and she is like pretty sassy in the books, but something that I really liked in this movie and in 5 is they really let Maggie Smith express that sassiness a lot more vocally, a lot more regularly, and although it's not as in line with her character in the book, I think it did a really good job of representing her character on screen, given the limited amount of time she had compared to some of the other characters. And then my next two positives are actually in relation to the Felix Felicis potion. The first one is I enjoyed that they kept the scene where Harry is using psychology tricks on Ron to get him to kind of overcome his fear and anxiety and perform, because he is a great Quidditch player when he's not racked with anxiety about how well he's doing. And so I love that, just in that it kind of lets Ron see that he's capable upon reflection, because he doesn't know right after the fact that he didn't get the Felix Felicis. I also just love the idea that in a world where people just use magic kind of willy-nilly to solve their problems, that Harry was just like, psychology, gotcha. And so it was just a really fun scene. And then my third positive is the way they presented the Felix Felicis after Harry took half of it so he could get what he needed from Slughorn. The reason I like it so much is it adds a sense of lightness that wasn't necessarily as well represented in the book as it was in the movie. And I really liked that, because the movie overall had such a dark, such ominous tones, that having Harry even be that lighthearted just because he's feeling so lucky and just really happy, it was really nice to have that lift the mood of the movie a little bit. And those are the big positives for me with this movie. I'm now going to move on to my negatives. My first negative is how they represented Slughorn here. I mentioned in my book reviews that I really like him because he's the epitome of what I consider a Slytherin to be without being evil. And it's really unfortunate because in the movie, he comes off as a lot more bumbling and dotty, really. Like, he doesn't have the same cunning undertones as he does in the book. Like, he's still self-serving in both situations, but he definitely comes off as just being a lot more airheaded and less thoughtful about what he's doing in the movie, and I really felt that took away from the aspects of his character that I really liked in the book. And then my next two negatives actually have to do with the front half of the movie, and specifically the first 20 minutes, really. And I've split that up into two different things because they are two separate scenes technically, and it is the introduction to the movie. They do it in a way that tries to minimize the amount of screen time it takes. I do understand that there is limited screen time, but it strayed so far from the book, and the book did such a good job setting up this miniature, this little arc within the bigger arc, that it was really unfortunate that they skipped and altered so much, because it really just, the beginning of the movie just doesn't do the story justice the same way the book does. And then that leads me into my second, which is the train ride, which is also near the beginning. And for me specifically, it was such a powerful scene, having Harry sit with Neville and Luna and have him say, like, no, I'm sitting with these people because they're my friends. And people, like, it really shows Harry's development as a person. And it made me really upset that they took that piece of growth away from him in the movie, because it really was something that spoke so highly of the people he was with and how he feels about them, and what it meant to be part of the DA and what it meant to go to the Ministry. And that's really all I have to say about the negatives. There were more for each of these categories when watching this movie, but these were the three major in each category that really I struggled with. One of the big positives being one of the girl-on-girl social issues that I had such major issues with in the book wasn't included at all. So I didn't have to suffer through that aggravation. And I'll just move to the characters here too. I'll just move onto the characters now. I mentioned already my kind of dissatisfaction with Slughorn. Overall, like, a decent character, but just wasn't as well represented. I think the actor did a fine job, but I don't know if it was him or just the direction he was given in regards to how to play the character that really turned me off. I like that they still kept the development that really showed why Voldemort and Dumbledore are adversaries. It really did a good job of showing how thoughtful and powerful Dumbledore is, because they've already shown how powerful Voldemort is in the previous movies to a lot more effect than they did with the books. Which leads me into the trips into the Pensieve. I wish that had been included a little bit more, and that there were more of Dumbledore's memories of Voldemort as a young man that he had gathered that were included, because they were very important. But again, I totally understand there's just not enough time. And really, like, the casting was still really good otherwise. The development for the main three was still really good. They have done a very solid job translating most people over. And so I really have very little complaint in this area, as I do in every Harry Potter movie review. So with the wrap up, I'm going to start with my movie I'll start with my movie score. This movie to me is a 4 out of 5. As with most of the Harry Potter movies, the production quality of these movies is very high. They are very linear within each other in terms of the series. And the story follows a very specific progression, and the movies are always very well paced because of how the books are paced and what they're picking out of the books. This movie is similar to the previous movies, where as a movie unto itself, it would be hard to follow, but if you've watched the previous movies, this movie makes a lot of sense, and it follows the series quite well. And the acting is phenomenal, the cinematography is beautiful, the sets are really wonderful to look at, and it just hits all the notes that the previous Harry Potter movies have met. The book to movie score, however, is a little bit different. I think this one is a 3.5 out of 5. The big things for me is that they changed Slughorn so much in terms of his general demeanor, and I feel and that just upset me, because I think of how highly I regarded him in terms of the definition of Slytherin. And there were other little things that I felt added a lot of nuance to the story that it would have taken too much time to include them in the movie, so I do understand why they weren't included. But I still think the story would have been better if there had been a way to include more of that. Really, that's all I can really say without going on and on and on and on and repeating myself a horrendous number of times. This was still a really good movie. If you've watched the other movies, I'd recommend it. If you've read the book, I still recommend it. In a series that is well adapted, it's not the best adaptation, but they still did the overall story a reasonable amount of justice. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.